From this pre-acquisition entry, from this entry at the day of acquisition, we have got the non-controlling interest at the day of acquisition. But of course, we have to prepare consolidation every year. So that's why, say for example, now it is 4 years after the day of acquisition. We need to know the non-controlling interest 4 years after the day of acquisition. And therefore, every year we have to allocate everything to non-controlling interest to obtain a new updated balance for the non-controlling interest. Therefore, we have to share everything. As I've said before, the entry at the day of acquisitions will give you the non-controlling interest at the day of acquisition. But we want to know the non-controlling interest now. Therefore, we have to update the balance of the non-controlling interest from the day of acquisitions up till now. If the question asks for the income statement and the balance sheet, we will separate this process into 2 steps. The step 2 will be we allocate the profit to NCI from the day of acquisitions up to the beginning of the current year and then for the current year. We separate into 2 steps because for the step 3, this affects the current year income statement, and for anything before the opening balance, it will affect only the balance sheet. So that's why we separate it into 2 steps. So from the first entry, we have got the non-controlling interest at the day of acquisition already. Now we start to share the non-controlling interest. We share everything to the non-controlling interest from the day of acquisitions up to the beginning of the current year. Say for example, if we share the profit, any profits before the beginning of the current years, they have been closer to retained earnings. Therefore, we debit retained earnings and credit non-controlling interest. Debiting retained earnings, that means the retained earnings to the parent go down. Right? Debit to retained earnings, that means the retained earnings to the parent go down. Crediting non-controlling interest means the non-controlling interest go up. Profit is just one example. So when we share the profits in the past, we debit retained earnings. But actually, we have to share any increase in other comprehensive income to non-controlling interest. Therefore, you may have to debit revaluation reserve, other reserve, general reserve, and translation reserve, and then you credit non-controlling interest. After we share everything from the day of acquisitions up to the beginning of the current year, we share for the current year. For the current year, take profit as an example again. So if we share the current year profit, we debit profit to NCI. We debit income to NCI, and then we credit non-controlling interest. So this debit to the profit to NCI, actually, if you have got only one subsidiary, right, then this debit to the profit to NCI will be the figures that you will find in your consolidated income statement. If you can still remember, we got the profit to NCI here, this 900, right? So if we have got only one subsidiary, this will be the profit to NCI that you have. If you have many non-wholly owned subsidiaries, you may have to add the profit to NCI together, and the summation of all this will be the profit to non-controlling interest that you will show in this consolidated statement of profit and loss.